everyone. Please join with me in making Phil welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes. Good evening, everyone. The first slide I've put up is just a follow on from last month's presentation. I realized that some of the colors in the Guppy moving averages ribbon may be a bit confusing. So I've made them more consistent and logical. The formulae are still the same, it's just a couple of color changes. I've made all improving bullish stages into varying shades of green, as you can see down here. The one below is the old colors, so maybe you can scrap those, I will be doing myself. So the formula is the same, it's just the colors. All improving bullish Guppy moving averages are shades of green, and all deteriorating bearish moving averages are varying shades of red and pink. And they reflect, as you can see up here, where the nervousness creeps in here, and all moving down here, then completely separated. I won't go into too much detail because we did all that last week and got a lot to do tonight. Remember, the system is, yes, any green GMMA, Guppy moving averages, can be taken, but it's the this one here, the countback line, which is the critical thing. It must have broken through the countback line. I've given Robert the new coding, so you may want to make the same changes.
Yes, and I've got the revised indicator ribbon BullCharts code. I will be uploading it to the Google Drive tomorrow for anybody who wants to have a look at it. And for, I guess, for more information about how it works, people should, and your interpretation, people should probably have a look at that YouTube video because there are many examples in there.
Right, yeah. The rate of change extremes, I call it. This is a rate of change method I often use to take profit of 25 to 50% of my parcel when there's an unusual share price move. It's more of a scalping technique than a trend following system. I developed it when I once sat like a stunned mullet as the share price of, I think it was Domino's Pizza, shot up 10% and fell right back down again within the space of an hour. So it prompted the question for me, what is a normal price upwards movement? And what is an extreme upwards movement? So this is why I devised this indicator. The rationale for my indicator is I'm interested how far, on average, a share price can jump from yesterday's close to a high in today's trading day. So from yesterday's close to the high, the close to the high, the close to the high, the close to the high. I use end of day data looking back 500 bars. You need a large sample, as I'll explain in a minute, and back testing it on TradeSim with 500 bars produced the best results. A large backtest also cuts out the very volatile swings we've had recently due to COVID. So the usual rate of change, ROC indicator, goes from close to close, close to close. Mine goes from close to high. So I've adapted the rate of change formula from today's close, that's the old one, today's close minus yesterday's close, and working out a percentage to this, today's high minus yesterday's close, divided by yesterday's close times 100 to create a percentage. Then I find the average amount that daily move has occurred over the last 500 bars, if it has occurred. Then I add 1 and 2 standard deviations functions you'll find in BullCharts. For the mathematics of it all, I suggest you Google bell curve and standard deviation. I'll just, so I'm measuring this movement from close to high, close to high. Every time it happens over the last 500 bars, customized for each individual share. That's what the formula does. Some of you may be familiar with the bell curve, but I'll just take a quick look at the standard bell curve of data. It's all to do with calculus that I could have explained to you 50 years ago, but I've no idea how to do that now. I've forgotten my schoolboy mathematics. If you have a large enough sample, and that's why I use 500 bars, by definition, 68% of your data is included in one standard deviation either side of the mean, the average. And 95% of the data will fall into two standard deviations. If you have a large enough sample, you can use standard deviations with any sort of data, IQ tests, census figures. And as a young man, I used to work out what was a reasonable price to pay for a used car, provided my sample was the same year and model. So standard deviations and averages can be quite useful in everyday life. Rightio. So this is the actual coding I use. Robert's got a copy of this. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail or explanation. It's just to illustrate how it works. So there's an input there, 500 bars. You can change that if you wish to 250, but if you change it to something like 50 or 30, you may get some of those wild gyrations we've had recently, which will upset your figures. So I use 500 bars, and I've got some good results from that. The basis for the formula, as I said, the high of yesterday minus yesterday's close divided by yesterday's close multiplied by 100. Then down here, I find the average of all that happening. Then I find a standard deviation over 500 bars of all that. And I add one standard deviation to find an extreme and two standard deviations to find an extreme extreme. Then to add it to the chart, I use this formula to create what I call ROC up 1 and ROC up 2. And the colors I use, turquoise for ROC up 1 here. This is how it appears on a chart. And deep blue for ROC up 2 here. As you can see, sometimes the price will move right through and sometimes it won't touch. So these are the days I regard as unusual price movements. It's just my definition of what an unusual jump upwards looks like. There's nothing magical about the number, but it is based on statistical logic, the standard deviations, to include most of your past data. It can be helpful in providing a target sell price if things are moving dramatically. I'll move on to show you the lines in action now. This is a live chart of ANZ in late May and June. I think on the 26th of May here, some analysts or the government announced that things weren't going to be as bad as they thought they would with COVID, and so the whole market jumped. And this is ANZ, the banks did too, which lead a lot of the XJO. You can see the two ROC up lines over the price of the ANZ here. And then I replicated these lines into this ribbon down here, ribbon number 3, I've used for if the line crosses the first rock up line, and a dark blue if it crosses the second one. You can see dark blue there, you can see turquoise there, it should touch that one there. And I use a fuchsia color, like the color, if it not only crosses the line, but also, as you can see down here, if the RSI is above 70%. So you know that things are getting a little bit crazy, maybe. I may sell, not always, 25% of my parcel on Rock Up 1 and a further 25% here if it passes through Rock Up 2. I can often buy back in on retracement, so long as the guppy moving averages and the countback line conditions still apply. I can often use the VWAP, the volume weighted average price, or the income combination with the Fibonacci's, and I often get back in again, having taken some profit. And sometimes the lines really save my bacon. I use this technique if I'm nervous because I haven't heard any good news to warrant the increase, or if the price is over 70–75% RSI, and if the price is approaching strong resistance. You can see here, and it goes back historically. I use the BullCharts zigzag line for 2%, 4%, and 6%, and I've also duplicated that in Excel, which does the whole thing automatically, quickly for me. So I know where the support resistance lines are. So if a combination of those 3 things happen, I'm very keen to sell. At the very least, when something hits rate of change Rock Up 2, an extreme rate of change with 2 standard deviations, it focuses your attention to ask the question, what's going on? This is very unusual movement. So look at one of the forums or read the news or whatever. And if the story's good, stay with it. And if it isn't, maybe take some profits. It could be just over enthusiasm. I use it any time during the trading day, including the first silly hour and a half, when things sometimes do go crazy. I grabbed a very nice profit the other day on ANZ, almost at the top. Oh, I'll come to that in a minute. If you already own the share, sometimes I might even, if I've managed to buy lower down here, I might even up each day and try and buy back in again. But anyway, another story. And remember, you're only selling 25 to 50% of the parcel. You have more still left in the market, and I use it sort of to lessen exposure in volatile times and bank the money, bank the profit. So we entered on the 26th of May, green. You can enter anytime the GMA is greenish, but the critical point is the CBL was up there, so I entered there. And you don't have to sell at the ROC sells. You could put a contingency order on and tell your broker to sell if it hits this price, but often you use an even better price, a countback line stop loss. This is Macmillan Shakespeare from 9:10 and 9:31 to get out at. But if you actually follow the intraday trading with 2, 5, or 10 minutes, this is 5 minutes, and use countback lines, 1 or 2, you can see you can just chase it up. A new high, countback line there, new high, countback line there, all the way up to the top here, where I think it would have got you out about $10.05, quite close to the top of the market.
Phil,
But I do.
very good, thanks. Before you go on, Phil, can you, I know last month you talked to us about a couple of the ribbons that you use, and they're on the screen there. For the benefit of those who might have missed that, or just to remind those who did see it last month, can you briefly recap the 3 ribbons that you're currently showing on that price chart?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I should have. The top one is Guppy moving averages, the Guppy on there, and they are simply reflecting the stages of the actual physical average lines, just so that the screen is less cluttered for me. And you can see here that all fast lines are moving up, and all the slow red lines, the investor lines, are moving up too. All of the lines are all moving up, but the fast lines have not yet penetrated through the red. And it's only when we get here, the fast lines manages to penetrate there, so that turns dark green there.
Yeah,
it must be one of the shades of green for me to take a trade, but it also is the countback line here. It must be above 2 countback lines, which we covered last week.
Yep.
Based on the lowest low in 10.
Very good.
And the third ribbon is simply a replication of these rate of change lines here.
Ah, yes.
Replicated in ribbon 3. So that is the first line. I'll zoom in a little bit.
And it indicates whether the price is above or below.
This is high touches the first line. It touches the height of the first rock line. I'm just interested in the high, because as soon as that happens, I start watching it on the intraday charts if I want to get out, and sometimes I can chase it up. This is when it's not just passed through rock 1, where you could take 25%, it's also gone through rock 2. So I haven't sold, I'm just watching it go up and up and up, and I might even sell both. And there was no candle wick at all. It finished high. It finishes on its high. There's obviously a lot of strength behind it, so there's no point in selling. So maybe live to fight another day. I'll just get to this point here where you would think of selling on that one. It's a very nasty candlestick. It tried to get higher. And then if I were watching that intraday, it would something I'd hope to get out in a situation, something like that up there at the top, and filled it up all day, and watched it come back down again. I want to be out up here somewhere. It's going to behave like that. And then so preempting what was my negative candlestick talk, that's a very nasty doji type thing. Last half I would definitely be out there, hopefully having taken 50% of the profit somewhere up here. If you managed to pyramid into all this and reach the high point on the 9, there's a very, very good case here to take your ROC profits up there. Because it's hit very strong resistance points there. It's over 70% RSI, so things are getting people are getting a bit carried away, possibly. Of course, it's RSI is no reason it may not go higher, but it's just an indication that things are, a lot of people are, the momentum is increasing. And also, there are two very unseen candlesticks there. Tried to get higher, couldn't do. I often use today's typical price. That's the high, low, close divided by 3, sort of the average of yesterday's price. It couldn't even get above yesterday's typical price. So that's a very good sign to sell to take these ROC profits. And next day, it fell below the red here. So it would definitely be out there. And it below the countback line here. Didn't penetrate the downward countback line just yet, but that was enough for me to be out.
Good time to pause for break. We've had a few questions. Some of them are a little bit more general. I wonder if we should go through them now so that they don't all bank up. Andrew has asked if you have applied any volume analysis that might add a supporting view of any possible breakouts. That might complicate things, and maybe that's beyond the scope of tonight's discussion.
No, again, I use volume in my my main indicator, which I call score up, with about 30, which is a combination of 30 different indicators, and I use volume is included in that. I use Elder's Force Index and Twigs and on balance volume as well. They're all included in another indicator which you can't see here. I like to have a fairly uncluttered screen, and this I'm interested in price movement with the ROC. But it's a very good question, yes, that volume could reinforce the movements.
Okay, good, thanks. And Dennis has asked a question which I think we covered last time. Might this work on weekly charts?
Yes, it could, in that I'll just change this week, see what happens. You can see that it does sometimes, it could give you target prices. I'll just come to the next one, the prediction stage, the next slide in a moment, and it could give you a target price or a strong resistance level. And on the weekly chart, it's, you might want to alter the number of bars, I don't know. It might give you a target price to be looking at to take some profit. So I haven't back tested this on a weekly chart, but I have back tested daily chart to do. I said if it hits ROC 1 or ROC 2 or a stop loss point, then count that as a win, and so on. And anyway, the back testing proved that something like 1.7 winning trades to losing trades, and I think it was 2.4 the actual amount of the win to the loss. So this system works for me.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Phil, one more. Chris has asked about one of the indicators you're using. I think the answer is they're all available. If not now, they will be later in the Google Drive. But he's identified the indicator which shows up on your chart as 012P CBL LMT 10L, 210 lines. Mito 10.
Yeah, these are the actual. These are the lines that are reflected in the BL here. That's what I think is talking.
Yeah, that's right.
That are operating off 10.
If that's not one of the ones you've sent me,
and I've translated those into ribbon.
Yep. Let's make sure we get one of those.
I think you may already have it.
Yeah. All right, Phil. please
database.
Please continue with the discussion. Thanks, Phil.
I'll send them on. Yep. Rightio. Right. The beauty of it is that you can do your calculations the night before to work out the targets. So you can have a target. This is ANZ for tomorrow. If it hits $19.05, that's a very nice move up. If it hits $19.35, it'll be very, very nice. Because I should make a lot of money off that. But it's nice to. The beauty of it is you can predict what the price would have to be tomorrow to trigger a rate of change extreme event situation. And that line's available, so you can work out and be ready when the market opens. And especially if you're sort of approaching support resistance levels, you've got all that data at your fingertips, and you know this is happening as well, it sort of might influence your decision, help you with your decision. And if you want to do some scalping, you could place a contingency sell order before the market opens at those prices and go back to bed. Oh no, what we do in Western Australia, example, live market for you in Melbourne. Or you can follow the action during the day, following the price up if it gets there, if it gets that far. So it's not a crystal ball, but it just helps you do the calculations the night before. And there's an added bonus to these ROC lines as well. If you do a scan, as I could do here, a scan ROC extremes, and using, let's say, the top 50, using that formula, you can find out what the extreme percentages are. And they change a little bit over the weeks, but looking back 500 days, they stay a little bit the same. And you'll notice that something like Telstra, they all have different individual rate streams, but Telstra is one of the least volatile, tends to only jump to a maximum of 3% from one day to the next. Whereas something like Oil Search, upside down do it, it can move up to 7% a day. So, and some people like to know what are the more volatile shares, more trading opportunities. Some people like steadier shares to invest in. All right, yeah. I say this technique might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it works for me. To reduce the exposure to risk, and sometimes it might be really saving your budget. I was in Treasury Wines, TWE, here and here, and I took some profits. I wasn't in it there, unfortunately. I don't know why, but there's a lovely entry, guppy on here this day, the CBL and the guppy moving averages, and the next day it absolutely rocketed up, and very nice opportunity, and hit some strong support resistance lines. So take 50% profit there. The next day, this is next week, or next presentation, nasty countback line, couldn't get any higher. Sorry, nasty candlestick, couldn't get any higher. And that there, the next day, the third part is almost an evening star. So you'd be, and the guppies turned red as well. So you'd be well advised to get out there. I think that just about concludes it. So maybe there's some more questions.
Phil, yes, very good. Jason asked a couple of minutes ago, how is the 1SD extra calculated?
The formula, then count that ROC H. If it isn't, if it's a down day, it just won't count it. Then you look at the average, calculates the average over 500 bars, calculates one standard deviation over 500 bars. Then you work out an extreme is the average, ROC Av, plus one standard deviation. BullCharts does the calculating, the calculus for you. Could you hear that?
Yep, very good. Yeah, I
Hello?
think, yes,
Yeah.
Phil, that covers it, I think. Thank you. Another question we've got.
Yeah.
Des has asked, what percentage of your trades are hit by this profit breakthrough?
Well, whenever it varies percentage-wise. I'd say 50%, unless something else has happened previously, like up here. Whoops, for the trade. So you could be in here, following it up nicely here, and there you're out. So, but then when we get down here, I don't think I got in as early as this down here. It was all a bit still a bit, but there were a lot of extremes here. I got in on ANZ here on this day. I don't know when I got in on that. I'm not sure. But if one had, looking at it, I don't, if I can, it just depends what one on the share. I tend not to enter in the first hour and a half, and I can't remember what that happened, but it finished on a high. So there's, even if I got in here, it's well worth keeping. That didn't hit one of the rocks. It was a little bit of a hanging man there, a nasty candlestick. So I would have got rid of 20% of my parcel because it was a stick. But they're 25% parcels because they're dead out red. And I have various stop losses along the way, so hopefully I would have got out there. But that was probably a break-even share, going through the nicely extreme movements. So that's what that just alerts me that something's going on here. And well, the government made me the announcement, and it lasted 2 days, and then people thought, "Oh, enough's enough. Is this true?" And so they took profit, and then away it went again. But at that stage, people were getting a bit disillusioned or infected again. I don't know.
Ross likes looking at particular stocks. Yes. Can you show us, using your ROC indicators, the stock APT?
Right. APT, possibly, or no advice. It's, I would probably have taken some profit there. Not to say it's not going to go. I mean, it's an incredible story, APT, that it's going to go higher and higher. But if one sold there, it's a bit of a halt on proceedings there. But if you take that off, I will do tomorrow's. Not that the prediction is going to happen. It just gives you a target in case you're. And to become a rate of change extreme event, it would have to hit 98, $103 tomorrow. That's not today's price. That's tomorrow. Offset that one forward. And often share prices do hit when they get close to the ton. People want it to move through there, so it may well do.
Okay, Phil, that's enough of a forecast. And that one, that's getting dangerous. David has asked, Phil, if you look for more volatile stocks.
No, I tend to stick with well, certainly the XGO, nothing outside the XGO, usually the top 100, top 150. Give me a specky stock if you like. Anybody got a specky stock?
Well, Phil, that was David who asked that question, but Claude has asked something similar, and Claude has asked, which index or universe of stocks do you use to back test the extreme ROC strategy in TradeSim? And maybe it's the same answer.
The top 100.
Okay.
I do use the top 100 to because there's sort of less manipulation, less possibility of malicious manipulation, and TradeSim operates more quickly on the 100 than the 200. Less stocks to analyze.
And Phil, part B of the question about backtesting is how far back do you look? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years?
2,000 bars.
2,000 bars.
2,000.
Okay.
If the data is available, I'll just.
And of course, survivorship bias will override anything. So some stocks won't go back that far, and some that were here 2, 3 years ago won't be there now.
Yes.
2,000 bars is 6 years. Thanks, Claude. One more stock from David. David Woodside has asked to see SZL. That'll be our last question.
SZL.
Yeah.
I suppose you could
look at a 1 hour. Oh, you can't do that.
You could hold the figure to. I could make it 100. See what happens.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes.
Looks very.
So looking back 100 days, the history of 100 days, that you would still have. Well, there we go. Might have taken some profit here, especially didn't, but of course it's higher. And it shot up again. Yeah. You would still have 50% of the stock there, having only sold 50. Another 25% there, almost hit ROC 2. Afterwards, the guppy failed, it fell away, and you've got money in the bank. That's the way it sort of works for me.
All right, Phil, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, yes.
All done?
Okay, well, I hope people have, perhaps, it's just, I say, it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's more like a scalping method, but it works for me. I'm very used to it. And it just focuses my attention a little bit when it happens. Of course, you can scan for these situations using what I do after the first hour and a half and the snapshot comes through. I can do it on Excel as well. Yeah.
Very good.
So that's yeah, that's really good.
All right, Phil, thanks for that. I'll take back control as presenter, and we'll move on with our meeting agenda.
Right. Yep.
Here we go. I'm showing my screen now. Back to our agenda. Phil, thanks again. I think that's been very informative, and for some people more than others. Anyone familiar with ROC would have recognised exactly what was happening. Anyone not familiar with ROC it might not have made that much sense first time round, but I hope to get the YouTube video, the video edited and up on YouTube, hopefully by early next week. Back to the agenda. In the agenda, we've also made mention of special candles, and that was something that Phil has mentioned he'd like to talk about one day, and because of the time constraints, we're going to do that next month. So special candles next month. In the meantime, what we can do is open up the session to BullCharts questions or tips. And in this segment of our Melbourne meeting and in the smaller sessions in our webinar over the years, what we do here is invite you to ask anything you like about bull charts, and hopefully someone around the table can answer how to do it or what the issue is, or you might have noticed some strange little gremlin or bug and you think it's worth sharing or asking if anyone else has seen it. So now's the time for you to ask that question, maybe in the chat box, or maybe unmute and you can do it, speak it, talk us through it, either way. Or if someone's got a tip, a feature they've found and thought they'd want to share with us, happy to take any of those in the last few minutes we've got available. Is there anyone who has a comment or question or whatever along those lines?
I sent you that the color chart. I was the named colors that BullCharts has in its inventory.
Yes.
And I find that very, very useful, rather than messing about trying to find customizing a shade of color.
Yes.
And I think you said you put that in the knowledge base.
Correct. Yes, Phil, thanks for that. Let's share that. In the BullCharts knowledge base, don't forget the URL is kb.bullcharts.com.au. I added a new entry into the knowledge base last week. Color attribute list of colors. Now that's because other references in the knowledge base refer to the user manual and the information is hidden down somewhat. So in the knowledge base, here's that chart or table that Phil was just referring to. If I click on it, we can have a look at it in a bigger screen. For those of you who don't realize it, in BullCharts, and thanks Phil for pointing this out, this is really handy. For all of those who like to use named colors, you might be writing script for an indicator or a ribbon, and you want to use a particular color, you can either use the 6-digit hex code with the hash symbol I think we need, or maybe we don't, I'm not sure now. Or you use the name of the color as listed here in this big long table. So that table is out of the user manual. What I've done is I've added it to this new little article in the knowledge base. Very long list of named colors for use in BullCharts script. So all you've got to do in the knowledge base is search for color, or if you like, color attributes, or search for anything else about attributes, and you'll get some good and useful hits in the knowledge base. As I said earlier, the user manual is now up there in the knowledge base. Phil, thanks for pointing that out. That's good. There's no new chat messages. No one's asking any questions or offering any advice or tips.
Just one little thing. It's not BullCharts. It's with TradeSim. Maybe I should try on the forum, but I can't find the coding which says keep the entry signal as it is and only exit if you go below a break-even point. I'll ask that question on the forum, the TradeSim forum on BullCharts.
I think I've seen it there. I can't recall where it is though.
All right.
I don't use it enough.
Right, yeah, I'll look out for it. Sorry. Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Hello, Robert. It's Michael here, Robert.
Yes, Michael.
Good evening.
Yeah, good.
Just a query with the BullCharts indicators. There was I was looking to add them the other night, and one of them in particular, when I looked at the form, the click on it to look at the coding, it just had the formula name.
Yeah.
Is there any way to see what's in that formula then, or not?
Excellent question. The short answer is generally not.
Oh, okay. Because I, being curious, I want to see how that formula is, going to work, and to understand whether it's going to do what I want it to do.
Yeah. Michael, that's an excellent question. The best thing I can suggest you do is go to the BullCharts user forum and search the forum or post a new question somewhere under BullCharts discussion or script or something. Post it there. I know that this is the case because Des and others have stumbled across some formulas inside the scripts and wondered what they do, exactly the same thing you're wondering, and they've asked for information about it, or if it's in the documentation, in the help, and it tends not to be. Yeah, unfortunately, it's often not available. But by all means, send an email to Brendan, info@bullcharts.com.au, and ask if he can share it with you, because he might be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I probably more to my benefit than most people, well, I don't know whether they'd want it, but to be able to put the date on the chart, like up on the top line or somewhere. So if I print out a chart, if it had today's date on it, yes, but really want it on the right of the other side of the chart, because when you often print a chart, you're not getting the whole page.
So is it today's date you want, and you want it somewhere on the...
Yeah. I'd rather it over where after the stock code or something like that on the other side of the page. So
somewhere up in that corner.
Yeah, because that way when I print a chart off, it usually only prints 3/4 of the page of the whole chart because of the size of my screen.
Yeah.
And that way, when I look at that chart in the future, I can say, well, that date refers to that last candle. So I know where to go straight back to the current chart, to get to match up with that.
Is it a case of you've got it displayed on the screen, and when you print it, it gets chopped off? Or that's not...
Yeah, it doesn't print the whole width of the chart for me.
Yeah. Maybe we can have a chat about that offline, because there's a couple of things to look out for there. But Des, thanks for that. Des has replied to me. Ross is asking, is it a printer driver issue? I don't think so. Des has said you can put a date or anything anywhere using line style equals text.
Okay.
So there is a way to do it. And I should mention to everyone that if you come across things like this that should be simple to do, by all means put it in the BullCharts user forum. I know the user forum is not heavily used, but we've found that when there are good questions up there, there are usually some knowledgeable users around the country who do reply fairly quickly. So by all means, put questions like that in there.
Thank you for that.
Okay, a couple of people in the chat box have said there are a few ways to print. You can take a screenshot, of course. I've got screen capture software that I use, which I find really good. David Woodside said, my printer prints the date. May check print setup. For anyone who doesn't have good screen capture software, this is mine. I use Wisdom Soft Screen Hunter. There's a free version available. If you pay the nominal amount of 10 or 15 euro or whatever it is, then you get the option to enable captioning, and you can put a caption onto your chart, and you can do other things as well. And with this tool, you can set up your hotkeys. As soon as I hit my hotkey sequence, I can then grab any particular portion of my chart, and that can be saved as a JPEG file or put into Windows memory. Or you can save not a rectangular area, but a window or a full screen. there are lots of options there. So if anybody's not found a good screen capture tool, that's a good freebie. I've been using it for many years, and it always sits in memory. The other thing I was going to mention was I've noticed that the BullCharts version number now is nowhere near standard amongst a whole lot of users. I'm currently using version 5.1.8. So are a couple of you I know. The latest latest stable version, let's have a look. If we go to the BullCharts website, and for those who have not done this, let's have a quick chat about it, or if you don't do it often enough, go to the BullCharts website. Near the bottom left corner, click on Updates and Downloads. Then punch in your BullCharts data plan username and password and log in. And here, there's some commentary about version 5.1. Down here, it's talking about 5.1. Now, that might be 5.1.4, I think, or 5.1.2. Since then, there have been some attempts to fix little gremlins and glitches. So some of you might be running a later version that might be 5.1.4, or in my case and case for a couple of you, 5.1.8. So if you've got little glitches that occur, by all means yell out, raise it with Brendan or the BullCharts team on the help desk in Sydney, and they might suggest that you upgrade to one. If anyone is still running a version less than 5, version 4 something, then you're missing out on some minor changes. The biggest thing that changed with version 5 was support for high resolution screens. That required a major rewrite of many components of the software, apparently, because of the way Microsoft handles that sort of thing in the background. Hopefully that's useful and not too confusing. It's 10:15. It's time we wrapped up, I think. In the agenda for tonight, I was going to mention last month's recording of Phil's session. We've done that. The BullCharts User Group Google Drive. I am slowly adding more and more material to that. The minutes and agenda for the last 3 or 4 years for our user group are up there. And Des has uploaded some of his indicators and presentation, and Phil's is going up there as well. I need to add David Woodside's one from a few months ago and John Beatty's one. So they should be up there over the next few days as well. And progressively, I'll add more and more, as I've got time, add more and more information to the Google Drive. That's our replacement for the old Yahoo Groups forum that some of you who have been around longer might recall we were using till Yahoo shut it down last December. That's about all I've got to share. So let's wrap it up there. Are there any last minute questions, feedback or comment before we close the session? Dennis says, Brendan says 518 is classed as a beta. Yes, 518 is beta, so it's not guaranteed to be stable. Anyone using 518 or 7, maybe even 6, it's beta and not totally debugged. Don't forget, software testing does not prove the absence of bugs. It only helps you find them and fix them. Our next meeting, Melbourne meeting, is scheduled for 16 September. It may or may not go ahead, probably not, but it might. And this webinar, 1 week later, so in about 4 weeks' time. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for your interest and participation. Any emails, any questions, any queries, things about Phil's presentation, by all means, email us. Paul has asked, how do we access Google Drive? Paul, send me an email. What I need to do is, for Google Drive, I grant access to an email address that you give me. Some people have 2 or 3. Let me know which one, and on return, I'll give you access and you'll get a reply to the email address that we're using for Google Drive. So no problem, Paul, do that, and anyone else. All right, there are some thanks in the chat box. Thank you, and thank you to Phil again for your effort and time with the presentation. It's been really good, and we'll end the meeting there. Thank you all. Have a good night. Stay safe over the next month and longer, and hopefully be back in touch next month. Good night all.